Okay, so this program is made possible through federal funds provided by the Institute of Museum and Library Services as administered by the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners, and also through the generous support of the Chelmsford Friends of the Library. My name is Vicki Turcott, and I'm the assistant director here. And the library has recently received a grant to fund our On the Go with Healthy Senior Living program, which is going to bring you a series of programs right to your Zoom, and they will be recorded and made available on Chelmsford telecommunications later on. And hopefully when the weather gets nicer and the COVID gets a little less, we'll be able to bring our pop-up library around to a senior living facility or the senior center, hopefully one of those areas near you, and you'll be able to take advantage of some of the things we've been able to buy with the grant. So tonight we're going to hear about the Savvy Caregivers program, which is offered by the Elder Services of Merrimack Valley and North Shore. I'm going to mispronounce it. Crystal Polizzotti.
Perfect.
All right, is the Healthy Aging Program Manager at Elder Services, and she's going to give us an introduction to this wonderful program. If there is enough interest, the library may be able to offer the full 6-session program. And it's all yours, Crystal.
Great. Thank you so much, Vicki, for the introduction and for having me. Oh, it looks like I can't share my screen.
Whoops.
So maybe if you make me a co-host, we'll be all right.
You are good to go.
Perfect. Okay, there it is. So I'm going to pull this up and bear with me because I am working on 2 screens here. So hopefully that is displaying okay. Can we see that?
Yes.
Okay, I'm just going to start it from the beginning. There we go. Okay, and then I'm just going to switch this. Then it's a perfect view for me. Okay, whoops. So thank you again. My name is Crystal Polizzotti. Whoops. Of course, I'm having technical difficulties myself. And I work at the Healthy Living Center of Excellence at Elder Services of Merrimack Valley, as Vicki mentioned. The Healthy Living Center is a department within Elder Services. Elder Services physically is located in Lawrence, and now we have a second site in Danvers. That's why we're now the Merrimack Valley and North Shore. We merged a little over a year ago. So we now cover 28 cities and towns all the way out to the North Shore through the Merrimack Valley. So we have a large catchment area and we offer a lot of programs. The Healthy Living Center is a department within. A lot of people think we're our own entity because we have our own name, but we are a department right within the organization. The only difference we are from other departments is we are the only department that is self-funded. So just as Vicki mentioned around the grants that are supporting this presentation, all of our work is also grant funded and we receive our own funding. And I'm very happy to report that the Savvy Caregiver program is funded by the Administration for Community Living, a brand new grant that we just received on August 1st that will take us through July 2023. And the Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare Foundation awarded us their largest grant of 2019 that supports this program, along with one of our falls prevention programs. So in the Healthy Living Center, we have a long list of programs. I think we're up over 20 programs that we currently offer. And we have caregiver evidence-based programs, which I'll talk a little bit about today. We have falls prevention. We have chronic disease self-management programs. We have some healthy eating programs. We have one-on-one programs around setting goals and making small changes. So if you like what you see today and you want to learn more, which we see that a lot, folks will take one of our programs and they'll say, what's next? And we love that. That's the best compliment we can get, that you take all our programs. Our programs are all designed for anyone 18 and over, which is a little bit different from Elder Services, which the majority of our other programs are for 65 and over. So we're a different department and I love being a part of it. And I've been there almost 5 years now. And I just get a little feedback there. I am also a certified dementia practitioner and I am a master trainer in this program, which means I don't only run these programs for caregivers like all of you on this call today, but I also train the trainer in this program as well. So I'd like to dive in by just showing a quick video on Alzheimer's disease. It's about 2 minutes and I should probably share my sound before I forget, which I tend to do in presentations. There we go. It's about 2 minutes. It's just an overview of Alzheimer's disease itself. The video can be a little tough to watch, but it's quick, short, to the point, and I think it's a nice way to open up why we have a need for this program and the challenges that Alzheimer's disease can bring. Okay, so here we go.
Alzheimer's is a slow, fatal disease of the brain affecting 1 in 10 people over the age of 65. No one is immune. The disease comes on gradually as 2 abnormal protein fragments called plaques and tangles accumulate in the brain and kill brain cells. They start here in the hippocampus, the part of the brain where memories are first formed. Over many years' time, the plaques and tangles slowly destroy the hippocampus, and it becomes harder and harder to form new memories. Simple recollections from a few hours or days ago that the rest of us might take for granted are just not there. After that, more plaques and tangles spread into different regions of the brain, killing cells and compromising function wherever they go. This spreading around is what causes the different stages of Alzheimer's. From the hippocampus, the disease spreads here to the region of the brain where language is processed. When that happens, it gets tougher and tougher to find the right word. Next, the disease creeps toward the front of the brain, where logical thought takes place. Very gradually, a person begins to lose the ability to solve problems, grasp concepts, and make plans. Next, the plaques and tangles invade the part of the brain where emotions are regulated. When this happens, the patient gradually loses control over moods and feelings. After that, the disease moves to where the brain makes sense of things it sees, hears, and smells. In this stage, Alzheimer's wreaks havoc on a person's senses and can spark hallucinations. Eventually, the plaques and tangles erase a person's oldest and most precious memories, which are stored here in the back of the brain. Near the end, the disease compromises a person's balance and coordination. And in the very last stage, it destroys the part of the brain that regulates breathing and the heart. The progression from mild forgetting to death is slow and steady, and takes place over an average of 8 to 10 years. It is relentless and, for now, incurable. Helping your family, friends, and neighbors to better understand Alzheimer's will reduce stigma, improve care, and even help the fight for a cure. Thanks for helping to do your part. Learn more at www.aboutalz.org.
So I understand that may have been a little heavy to open up the presentation, but I think it's important to realize what is actually happening in the brain. A lot of caregivers that I come in contact with, I find that they have a hard time, especially when you're caring for a parent or a spouse. It's hard to separate the disease from the person. So I feel that video does a really good job of showing you exactly what's happening in the brain and some of these behaviors, as we call them, that you'll see in Alzheimer's. They're not a personal attack on the caregiver or the closest person to them. It is the disease wreaking havoc in their brain. And as the video mentioned, it is a slow progressive disease. Some folks go through all the stages of the disease in 3 years, where others can stay in one stage for up to 20 years. If you've met one person with Alzheimer's disease, you've met one person with Alzheimer's disease. It affects everybody differently, and they work towards finding a cure diligently. They do know that we know what causes Alzheimer's disease, the gene that we have in us that can cause it. That they have found. What they don't know is you can carry that gene and never develop the disease. So they're trying to figure out, and all of the study and research is now going into what's actually activating that gene. That is what we still don't know. And I also like to add here, and I usually bring a handout, it's a really good visual, and I can share it at the end for those, because a lot of people don't understand or even know the difference between Alzheimer's disease versus dementia. And we tend to use this acronym ADRD, Alzheimer's disease or related dementias. And I get this question all the time. What's the difference between Alzheimer's disease and dementia? And dementia is actually It's made up of symptoms. So dementia is the umbrella term for which Alzheimer's falls below, Lewy body disease falls below, frontal temporal, and all the different types of dementia fall underneath the dementia umbrella. So Alzheimer's disease is the most common. So that's just the one you tend to hear the most. So we are now seeing, increases in the number of people who are showing signs of dementia. Usually it starts with some memory issues, and then next you may see something like judgment and reasoning issues, maybe trouble with driving, mood swings, depression can be very common. And now husbands, wives, children, neighbors, friends are noticing these changes in their person, and they're not really sure how to handle them. So developers of the Savvy Caregiver program out of the University of Minnesota in the late 90s, decided to create an evidence-based program to train family caregivers for this untrained role that so many people fall into with the more cases of dementia that are happening, especially as the baby boomers are aging and our population is peaking at its oldest point. We're having so many people who are stepping into this role as an active informal caregiver, is what we refer to them as. So they developed this wonderful program called the Savvy Caregiver program. And when I say evidence-based, that means that it has been researched, studied, evaluated, and proven effective. And we continue to collect data on all of our evidence-based programs to ensure their effectiveness. We always have outcomes, and we want to make sure that anybody who's participating in any of our programs are benefiting from it. And the data always shows us just that. So a little overview of the program as a whole. It is designed for those caring for someone with Alzheimer's disease or related dementia. However, a formal diagnosis is not required. So if a caregiver calls me and they tell me, I ask them what's going on, what's happening at home, what are you experiencing? Very common, I'm going to hear memory issues. Very common, I'll hear they seem depressed. They don't want to do what they used to do. They don't want to get dressed anymore. And as I get the caregiver talking, as long as I hear that a few things are being impacted, they're going to be a good fit for Savvy Caregiver. We have also found that folks caring for someone with Parkinson's disease can also be a good fit for Savvy Caregiver. And the program is designed for folks who are caring for someone in the moderate stages of the disease. However, I let caregivers from all, points in their journey join the group. I find that those who may be new to caregiving, they can get a little overwhelmed with the information, especially that first video we showed. We do show that in session 1. And I get a lot of feedback from it where they don't like it. They feel that's too harsh. And I totally understand that. But as I was sharing with Vicki before some of you joined, evidence-based programs aren't meant to sugarcoat things. We want to give you the reality of it so you're prepared, you can make changes, you can accommodate, and you're not thrown in head first. We're not trying to scare you. We're just trying to provide you with as much information as we can so you're prepared for this, because this isn't something that anybody is trained for or prepared for, to become a caregiver to your husband, to become a caregiver to your mother, your sibling, and we're seeing that more and more. So when a caregiver is seeing memory loss, their person struggling to think outside the box, they may see some impulsive behaviors, repetitive question asking, things that they just didn't see before, they're going to be a great fit for this training. It's informative, it's interactive, and it's held over 6 weeks, once a week for 2 hours each week. Now that we have made the pivot to remote delivery, we have also built in what we call a session 0. So the program does technically run for 7 weeks on a virtual platform, but session 0 is usually pretty short, and we just use that as an opportunity to go over technical questions as far as Zoom goes, make sure people can get connected, and just get to know each other a little. And then officially week 1, we dive into the material. The caregivers who attend this program, they really get the best of both worlds, in the sense that it feels a little bit like a support group and a training got married. So we open every week with, how are you doing? What's going on? What are you struggling with? And we let folks vent, because we know caregivers need that, especially now, right, where we're all really socially isolated. We only have this screen time. We're doing safer at home, especially here in Massachusetts. We want to allow for caregivers to have that opportunity to just check in. So the first 20 to 40 minutes, depending on the week, are dedicated just to check-in time. And then we'll always switch and introduce new skills, new strategies every week, presented via PowerPoint slides, handouts, and video clips. And we love to do interactive exercises, which is obviously great to do in person, but we're making it work over Zoom too. And caregivers are responding to the program just as they would as an in-person. And the ultimate goal for somebody, why would you attend Savvy? We want you to leave with some gained knowledge about the disease, how it's affecting your person, have these new skills for you to try at home. And most important, we talk about self-care, because we find that caregivers, especially spouse caregivers, they're really putting their needs on the back burner once their person's needs increase, and they're making less phone calls to friends. They're not going for that, manicure they do once a month. They're putting their needs aside because they're exhausted. And the last thing we want to do is have a caregiver burn out. And we're, of course, assuming that becoming a caregiver to your parent, spouse, or friend, like I said, this is an unexpected role. This isn't something you plan for in your 20s, and it happens, and here you are. And a lot of folks are thinking, what do I do next? Where do I turn? And another piece about being a caregiver, you wear a lot of hats, right? One day you're distributing meds like a nurse would. The next day you're planning out their week like an activity director. They can no longer drive, so now you're like an Uber driver and you're driving them around. You're wearing a lot of hats as a caregiver, and all of these people that normally wear these hats, from drivers to chefs to activity directors, they're trained, right? So that's what the developers of Savvy wanted to do. They wanted to train these family caregivers so you feel more confident making these decisions for somebody else, which you have never done before. We worked so hard over the years on making decisions for ourselves, and now you have to make it for someone else, and that can feel funny at times. So we want to give caregivers these new strategies, these new skills to try, that's going to really build their confidence. And I always say to caregivers, I'm very honest. I don't have all the answers. I'm not going to fix everything. But as long as you're willing to experiment and try these little adjustments at home, it could really make a difference in the long run. And little steps can go a long way in the long run. And I often say, don't get discouraged if it doesn't work the first time, right? We can't expect that perfection right away. But you need to be willing to experiment, think about the situation strategically. And when it's not working, take a step back and make the tweaks as needed and try again. That's all you can do as a human being. So just to kind of summarize what you expect when you sign up for one of these programs, you're going to come to week one of the class. And week one, it's going to be pretty information heavy. We're going to talk a lot about the disease itself. It's going to be pretty medical, but I'm also honest to the point that I am not a doctor. So we like to start with the medical overview of the disease, because that's step one of separating the disease from your person. And I think that's a big step for caregivers to make. They stop thinking that, they're asking questions over and over again just to drive them crazy, right? No, this is the disease. It's doing something in their brain. Separate your person from the disease, and that's going to help you tremendously. But as the weeks progress, they become much more interactive. We have a lot of exercises, brainstorming. We want to hear from you. We do a lot of role playing and practicing right in the 2-hour sessions. A huge component of the program is trying what you learn that week at home. So you have a whole week in between each session, and we really encourage caregivers just like you to try even one small thing. Just change the way your tone of voice is for the week, or change the way you phrase something and see if it makes a difference. And that's being savvy, that's being strategic, and that's making a small change to see if it makes a difference. So really practicing at home is when caregivers are going to benefit the most from it. There is weekly homework, but I always put in the disclaimer, if you don't get to the homework, it's not a problem at all. We review it all the following week. Every caregiver that attends the training or workshop, as we call them sometimes, is given a manual. And now that we're doing it virtually, I mail it right out to your home or wherever you would like it mailed, and it is yours to keep. The developers of the program have also given us the okay to email out the electronic version of the program for you to share with family members. And they give us that permission as well. We'll also send you some handouts, some printouts of the slide each week so you can follow along and take notes. But we understand that as caregivers, you are really, really busy. And I never want, so if somebody can't get to their homework for the week, I don't want that to discourage you from coming back the next week. Just be honest, and we're going to go over it anyways. Excuse me. And I also understand the caregivers are busy, like I said, and if you can't make it one week, that's okay. We encourage you to come back the following week. You will benefit the most if you attend every single week, but the program was designed with the understanding that caregivers are busy, and for them to commit to 6 and now 7 weeks on a virtual platform, that can be tricky and life gets in the way. Sometimes we just have bad days and we don't feel like joining the group. We don't want that to veer you from coming away. The developers have decided that as long as a caregiver attends at least 4 of the 6 information sessions, they're still considered a completer, because it can be a lot to commit to something like that. But I always let folks know that it sounds like a lot, but it's going to go by in a blink. And usually by week 4 or 5, I'm hearing things like, it's already almost over and it went by so fast, and they don't want it to end. It's just a wonderful program. And the best part is you're in a room or you're in a Zoom room with folks who identify with you. They're going through the same thing, and nobody is going to understand you better than this group. And I'm always so blown away with the advice that they offer to each other. So that is a really great part of it. And then, you start to experiment at home. You're understanding this role that you're now in as a caregiver. You're accepting the fact that this is a job and you weren't trained. You're not expected to know what to do every day and make things go perfect. But trying things at home will build that confidence, and you always have the group to fall back on and check in with. So the major objectives of the training, and we go through these week 1, and I think they're really important so folks know what they're going to get out of the training, right? We want you to appreciate the importance of caregiving, which is a hard concept for most. Some people come in and they're sad, they're mad, they're angry that they're now a caregiver. But we want them to recognize the good work that they're doing. And by keeping their loved one home for longer periods of time, that's only going to improve their quality of life. So we want you to give yourself a pat on the back for what you're currently doing. We're hoping to reduce the negative effects that caregiving has on a caregiver, which we talked a little bit about already, right? So burnout and fatigue and depression, those are those common side effects of being a caregiver. So we want to help you manage that. We want to increase your skills and knowledge so you feel more confident in the decisions you're making in caregiving day to day. We want to adopt this strategic outlook. Again, that's going back to being open to experiment. That's what it's all about. That's what the strategy is there for. We want you to develop these effective strategies, improve self-care skills. Every single week, your homework is to do something for yourself, whether it's a 5-minute bubble bath or a 10-minute phone call with an old friend. That is self-care. And we want you to check in that you're mentally doing that every day. And ultimately, this is going to improve the care recipient's quality of life, because we know that if a caregiver is feeling confident and positive and happy, that is going to be reflected in their caregiving, and their care recipient is going to pick up on that. And we're also really going to encourage you to involve your families. A lot of times caregivers don't want to ask for help, right? They don't want to burden people. They are afraid what people might say. But so we start talking about building these bridges to ask for help, because having a network in place, whether it's family or not, is so important. And the other positive piece of this is we're really going to, as social workers, we're going to connect you to other resources. When we do offer this program in person, we have a resource table every week with 3 to 4 resources. I usually bring some basic information about elder services for week 1. Some folks don't even know what it's like to be a consumer of ours and what's available. And then as I hear the needs of the group, I will start to, bring resources that are beneficial for them. And what I've been doing, offering it virtually, is I'm sending weekly reminder emails every week. Tomorrow's session 5, tomorrow's session 6, and I've just been either attaching or linking resources right in the email, trying not to put too many, because I know how emails can get, and I don't want to, just add one more thing to read. So I've been limiting them a little, but I always want to have the resources available to you. I find that a lot of caregivers who start with our evidence-based programs, they don't even know the respite that's available, the one-on-one family caregiver support that's available, home delivered meals, the list goes on and on. So I love to connect everyone to that as well. So as I mentioned, it is 6 weeks of information training. So I just want to talk a little bit more specifically about what to expect each week, because I get that a lot from people. What week should I come to? I want you to come to all of them. There's something from every single week. As I mentioned, week 1 is introduction to the program, a lot of what we're going to cover today, and then a deeper medical dive into what's happening in the brain, diagnostic testing, a little bit on medications, and a little bit on genetics as well. Then week 2, we're going to take a deep dive right into all these emotions that are associated with caregiving. We're going to play some little interactive exercises, if you will, around, how does this make you feel? How does that make you feel? And we're going to start to bring up those emotions and figure out how to navigate these, which can be really tricky. And the pandemic has really added to that as well. So this is really a helpful exercise for anyone just in general right now. And that's really going to link us to that connection of the importance of self-care and why we need to take time for ourselves and not feel guilty about it, which a lot of caregivers do. And we find also that a lot of spouse caregivers tend to put even their routine medical checkups. They spend so much time at their doctor with their care recipient. When it's time for their physical, they're like, oh my goodness, I just need a day off. And they're skipping these appointments. And we know how important, early detection and prevention is. And we don't want that to happen either. And by week 3, we start talking about, goals around caregiving. What do you hope to do through this caregiving journey? And that's when we introduce the staging system, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about in a further slide. So I won't go too deep into that. And then week 4 is everyone's favorite. It's the behaviors. So when we say behaviors, that could be everything from repetitive question asking. That's a really popular one, to my person follows me around all day. My person wants to wear the same outfit every day. I can't get my person to take a shower. They don't want to eat anymore. These things, those are all behaviors that go hand in hand with dementia. So we start breaking those down, thinking about, why is this happening? And again, when we're strategically thinking about the bigger picture, you'd be really surprised that you can get to a root of a lot of these behaviors. And ultimately, it is the secret sauce, but your person is always going to rely on their main caregiver the most for that sense of security. So a lot of times when they're just asking you that same question for the 10th time or asking you what time it is 5 times in a row, it has nothing to do with the question or the time. They're just confused, because confusion is the central state of reality for dementia. And sometimes that answer should just be, everything's okay, and give them a hug. And that could nip it in the bud. So it's little things like that that go a long way. And then by week 5, we're really starting to appreciate these new skills. We're trying new things at home. The caregiver confidence is building. And then we start talking about decision making, which I know I mentioned a little bit, right? You're not used to making decisions for your husband or your wife or your parent, right? That feels funny to make a decision for someone else. So we introduce a model called options, outcomes, values, and likelihoods. We call it the Oovl Grid. We love acronyms in the social work world. So it's the Oovl Grid, and it just really breaks everything down and it visually lays it out. And we find that people really respond to that. It comes across as a complicated model, but as you try using it, it's just really visual and it's matter of fact, and people love it. And it just really makes them feel supported in making major decisions. We've also found that this decision-making model can work in any scenario. It doesn't just have to be in caregiving. I had one caregiver who was a sandwich generation caregiver. So that's someone who's raising children and caring for their parents at the same time. Talk about having your hands full. And she said she used the Oovl Grid to help make the decision on what school her daughter should go to for college. So it can be used for anything. And some people really like it. And some people say, oh, that's too much. But again, you take it or leave it. It's just wonderful to get that visual idea. And then by week 6, we start talking about family dynamics, which is also a pretty popular discussion. That's when, all the skeletons come out of the closet. But we start with talking about the negatives of family dynamics, which we all know are there, right? The barriers, the miscommunication, the people are not they're taking what you say too personally, they're offended. So how can we build these bridges, as I said before, for our family members to help and and really diving into that. And I love this topic. I come from my grandmother. It has some early signs of dementia. I come from a family with a lot of women, and it's hard to get a word in edgewise. So I love the family resources section. I relate to it so much. And I think a lot of people do, because family dynamics are tricky. And then lastly, we do a program review, a full wrap up. We have a ton of time week 6 to just chat, check in, and review any of the concepts learned over the last few weeks. So at the end of the 6 weeks, we're hoping that caregivers are leaving with an acknowledgement of the disease. They're starting to make this cognitive shift. They're taking control of situations that they didn't feel confident to take control of before. They're handling these emotions that we talked about during week 2, which can be stuff like anger and sadness and happy, and it's waves of emotions. They're starting to focus on their person's strengths. I find a lot in week 1 and sometimes week 2, if it's a quieter caregiver, that they just want to share everything their person can no longer do, right? Well, my husband can't mow the lawn anymore, and my wife can't balance the checkbook anymore, and they always did this and they can't do it anymore. And they're harboring on these negative things. So making that cognitive shift to focus on what can your person do? There's going to be strengths that remain throughout the entire disease, and we really want you as savvy caregivers to build upon their strengths, because that's going to make for much less stressful days than trying to reiterate something that's just not going to work. So that is a huge cognitive shift that we love to see, to really think about the strengths of your person. And, setting realistic goals. Sometimes caregivers come to these groups and they just have standards that are way too high. And like I said, I don't want to sugarcoat it, but I am going to be honest that if you set your sights too high, you may be disappointed. So let's start small and let's just focus on getting through the day. Once you have a nice routine going, that's when you can start, setting some goals that may be a little bit trickier to reach. We talk a lot about problem solving. That's a huge concept every single week. And it's really good. I'm not always going to have all the answers. Nobody is, but it's wonderful to have a group who is in similar situations. And every time I'm, at a loss for words, somebody in the group will chime in and say, oh my goodness, this happened to me. This happened to my neighbor. Here's what we did. And it's just wonderful to have that connection. And so many caregivers at the end of the workshop, they want to stay connected. They say, when can we get together again? And I encourage them, exchange emails, phone numbers, meet at Dunkin' Donuts when it's safe to do so. Keep these conversations going, because it's really great to have a network of people who understand what you're going through. And then you can leave with this fresh outlook, a new attitude towards your caregiving, information, knowledge, and really, really hitting home the importance of self-care. So we cover a lot. I'm always so surprised with how much we cover. And I've probably ran 20 plus of these workshops in the last few years. And I learn something new from caregivers every single time, depending on the discussion and the situations. New topics come up. And we even have caregivers who take Savvy again. And we hear things from them, just like I said, every time there's different group dynamics. So new topics are going to come up. As facilitators of the program, we do have to stick to the information that has to be presented, but we have some nice time for conversations and sidebars. And that's really what makes the program what it is. So you're probably wondering who can benefit from this program. As I mentioned, it is designed for active, informal caregivers who care for someone who is either still living at home, living in the community, or if they're in some type of facility, they're planning to transition back home. We have in the past let caregivers in who maybe their person is in a long-term care facility or a memory care unit. They can still join. I hate to turn anyone away, but I'm very, very honest that the program is designed for someone who's in the moderate stages. I often find folks who are longer along in their caregiving journey become the voice of reason in the group. And the folks who are new, they're going to learn a lot. And those people right in the middle, they really have that sweet spot where it's just when they need it. I do sometimes hear from caregivers that they wish they had this sooner. So that's something to keep in mind. If you're just starting to see some signs in your person, Savvy it's probably time for Savvy, because you're going to learn so many things. And I always hate when it's too late. And the caregiver says things like, I wish I knew this 5 years ago. So join us. We'd love to have you. And it is for caregivers of people living with Alzheimer's disease or related dementia. There's our other acronym, ADRD, in the moderate stages. And I think I covered everything else on the slide. Take a breath for a minute. And then I want to talk a little bit about the outcomes of the program. So as I mentioned, it's an evidence-based program, so it's been studied. So I always love to kind of hit home, what you're pretty much guaranteed to take home from this program. So because we do have to collect data to prove that these programs work, we have every caregiver who attends them take a pre and a post evaluation. It's the same exact evaluation. We have you take it before you attend the workshop and then at the end, and that's how we compare the answers and ensure that it's working for you. So I love this statistic because we've done, the developers have done some studies, 12 months post-Savvy. Are you still using these skills? And in a small study done in the early 2000s, they found that a year post-training, caregivers are expected to have improved confidence and mastery in their caregiving. And the reason this is interesting is because we know this is a progressive disease, right? So depending on the person, it progresses at different rates, but it is going to progress. So a year post-Savvy, the care recipient is going to have higher needs, right? They're progressing in the disease. So for a caregiver to still feel confident in managing an increase in needs is huge. And that just really shows you the longevity of the program. These skills are going to stay. They're things you can use every day, and they're for the long run. So we've also seen improvement in personal meaning, improvement in negative moods, reduce negative reactions to those unwanted behaviors which come up so often. And it's been reported that Savvy caregivers also have less stress a year post-training. And, I think about this one a lot because there's so many pieces to the program that can help with stress management, whether it's reaching out to family and asking for help to get a break, whether it's incorporating that self-care, whether it's just feeling more confident in the day-to-day care, but it is really helping lower that stress, which is so important. Stress is so dangerous for our brain, our body, our heart. We want to keep that at bay when it is really inevitable in a lot of situations. So those are just some really nice outcomes because sometimes I get the question, okay, fine. Why just read the manual? Why can't I just read the manual? No, you need to come and interact and spend time each session with other caregivers. So those are some strong outcomes of the program. And as promised, I know I mentioned the staging system. So we use the Allen stages in the Savvy Caregiver program. There are several different stages out there for measuring the progression of the disease. The Alzheimer's Association, they used to use a 3-level model. They may have bumped it up to 5 now. This is very similar. There's a few others out there that doctors may use, but the Allen stages really work like a charm. And before I forget, the best place to go for up-to-date information, resources is the Alzheimer's Association's website, and they have a very easy alz.org. That is the best place to go. Don't go down the Google rabbit hole looking for answers. That's never a good thing to do. alz.org is the best place to start. And they have a wonderful 24-hour hotline in a lot of different languages. So it's a great resource. So that's just a little plug for them because they're wonderful. And they are the experts in this. So I always suggest people go to them for even more support. But we use the Allen stages in Savvy. And the Allen stages were initially developed for people with traumatic brain injury, intellectual and developmental disabilities, but the occupational therapists who kind of created the Allen stages very quickly learned that these could work just as well for dementia. The benefit of the Allen scale is that it enables caregivers to use the thinking levels as a way to fit a task or activity to their person's remaining strengths and abilities. So again, that's going to tie us back to focusing on what they can do and building from there, which is a different concept for a lot of people, but it's the best way to take it. And we use this concept of FIT, F-I-T, throughout the program a lot. I believe it's introduced week 3, the same week we introduced the stages. And it's all about fitting tasks and activities to your person's strengths. And when we break down the stages, which we use 6 stages, 6 being normal. So we're all stage 6. And it's kind of weird that it goes from 6 to 0. But the way I think about it is the more you have in the tank, right, the less you have the disease. So 6 are all normal, and then it progresses down. And we talk about what's appropriate for each stage. And that really helps caregivers start to think about what type of activities they can still include their person in. We always use the toothbrush example because this is something everybody does every day, I hope, hopefully twice a day, is brush our teeth. So when we think about brushing our teeth, right, it's a no-brainer. You don't even think about it. But if you break down brushing your teeth step by step, have you ever done that? Do you know how many steps there is? Number 1, you have to get to the bathroom. You have to turn the light on. You have to find the toothbrush, find the toothpaste, the sink, put the toothpaste on the brush. Maybe you wet it next. I mean, the steps just go on and on and on, which to somebody with dementia, if they're in, moderate stages and having a really bad day, that's overwhelming. So sometimes, simple little things, if your person is in, late middle, you would never want to say to them while they're still sitting in bed, it's time to brush your teeth. Number 1, because we don't brush our teeth in the bedroom. So you're immediately throwing them into a state of confusion if they don't even know they have to get to the bathroom. So this is what we mean about fitting tasks to their abilities. So someone in the late middle stages, you're not even going to use that sentence, it's time to brush your teeth. You're going to walk with them to the bathroom, do all of those steps for them, and hand them the toothbrush. Then all that's left for them to do is put it in their mouth. And then as the disease progresses, that may even be too much. And that's when things like demonstrating is wonderful. You brush your teeth with them. So they're going to see what you're doing, and they're going to have their light bulb moment where they know that's what they do too. So we talk a lot about reminders and gestures and demonstrating and hand over hand and when that's appropriate. And it's going to be different for everyone. Like I said, if you've met one person with Alzheimer's, you've met one person with Alzheimer's. So that's why they really need to start estimating where their loved one is at. They know their person best. And they go from there. And I encourage folks, don't get stuck in a specific stage, because it's very, very common that somebody could be a level 5 when it comes to brushing their teeth, but maybe they're a level 3 when it comes to making a meal in the kitchen. So you have to fit different tasks and activities to what their strengths are. So this slide here, it really goes hand in hand with what we just talked about. So when we're thinking about dimensions and steps to different tasks and activity, right? There's a purpose to why we do everything we do. There's an order, which is the exact steps that you take to get to your end result. And then there's the tools that you use to get there. So again, thinking about that toothbrushing scenario, we brush our teeth so we have good hygiene and fresh breath, right? That may be confusing for someone in the late middle stages of the disease to even wrap their brain around. So having a full-on conversation when they refuse to brush their teeth about dental hygiene, it's no longer useful. It's going in one ear and out the other, and you're just creating more confusion for them. Keep it simple and to the point. That's going to be your best friend. And then the order is those simple steps, right? So maybe they can find their way to the bathroom. Maybe they can find the toothbrush, but they can't find the toothpaste. So now they're just brushing with water, right? So now the order is off. And that also correlates with the use. They may not know that the toothpaste is used to go on the toothbrush. Now, you could have the type of bathroom where you have everything out on the counter. As somebody progressing through the disease, you're going to want to really eliminate that distraction. We've heard some horror stories. We've heard horror stories about a gentleman whose wife used nail polish remover to take her makeup off her face. And now she's, breaking out and having dry skin. They can no longer understand the use of these things. So keeping things clear, simple, and to the point, and only have the things they need as the disease progresses is going to result in success. And that's going to keep confusion at bay. And if confusion is kept at bay, you're not going to see these behaviors that can really get under a caregiver's skin. That's really the whole point of this program is thinking strategically about everything you're asking your person to do and how you're setting things up for them. And I know I'm throwing a lot at you, but this slide, we give this handout in Savvy. It's a wonderful one. It helps them continue to think about the stages. And as you know, the early stage, they may be able to still do 4 to 6 steps, and you can still say abstract things like, can you get the remote in the other room? You know, that's very abstract and vague, but that's still okay. In early stages, early to early middle, they're still going to be pretty independent. So there's just going to be minor tweaks that you make. But then as the disease progresses, you're going to want to get more concrete, passive, and then at the end, you know, passive enjoyment is okay too. I also don't want folks to think that they have to constantly engage their person in things. As the disease progresses, simple things like putting on music, putting a movie, braiding their hair, eating lunch with them, that's what we mean by passive. You're not going to challenge them to do anything as the disease progresses to late, middle, and late. And then to really sum up the program, the caregivers are going to leave with this knowledge, skills, outlook, and attitude, which I really kind of summed up quickly today. And, you know, if you come to the program, you're going to, you know, hear a lot more about all of these things in depth and hear from other people who are in the same situation as you. So I always like to end my presentations with what people who have attended Savvy Caregivers say, right? So we always want to hear from former participants of the program. And they say things like, I learned to understand the illness and separate it from the person. I take more time for myself to do things I want and not change my plans. Since taking this training, I've realized that it is about changing how I react in certain situations. It's not about changing my husband. My attitude is more understanding because of a better grasp of what the world of someone with dementia may be like. And I'm generally a worrier. The training has given my permission to just live in the moment when I am with my mom. I'm grateful for the time I spent with her. So really, everybody's going to take something different from the program, and that's the best part of it. And then I have a couple testimonials of folks who have agreed to, I have all, you know, the rights to share their videos. This is Mary Ann. She was one of the first Savvy Caregivers I trained, oh my goodness, back in 2016, I think. And she was caring for her husband. And I just want to share her little testimonial because it's quite funny. So we'll share this. Hopefully these videos aren't great quality because they're about 5 years old now. So let's make sure it plays okay. We'll try it out.
The most enjoyable part of the Savvy Caregiver training for me was that it indeed was a caregiver training, not a patient training, a caregiver training. And just bouncing the ideas off of the other 13 participants in picking apart their ideas and knowledge was a great lifesaver. Case in point, the bathing issue, many different variables there. And I thought that one of the participants, her eyes were going to fall out when I said how I got around this was my husband. I said the only way I could get him to shower was to get into the shower with him. And I came to realize that he got in there and he didn't know what to do. So that's how we got around that. And many other issues were averted too by just bouncing ideas off each other. The most valuable piece of information I learned from the caregiver program was that I cannot change the disease. I cannot change my husband's reaction to the disease or his behavior. The only thing that I can do is control my reaction to his behavior by implementing the involved caregiver, the involved approach, simple directives, and just listening to his concerns and validating him, but not going into crisis mode. A change I have made when working with my husband is using the decision-making grid on a regular basis, whether it be just a simple outing or a major lifestyle change, 2 of which I have just made. And that has been so helpful. And also the Allen scale. I need to reassess where I am at each given month, not every week, not every day, and see where we are in his progress or his decline, or just how he is on any given day. So That was very valuable for me. I am so thankful for this caregiver program because it has allowed me to improve the quality of my life by giving myself permission to reclaim my life. All the people around me were saying, Mary Ann, you have to get out. You have to do this. You have to do that. But first, you have to save yourself. If you are not a good caregiver, if you are burned out, if you are depressed, you are of no use to your loved one. So reclaiming my life means going back to work part-time. And how can I do that? I use that decision-making grid, and I am almost there. I am about a month away, and I just can't thank the staff of Savvy Caregiver enough because they've made all the difference in the world.
And I promise I didn't pay her. That was from the heart. And I have one other group. This is Hilvania and Jose, and they were both caring for Jose's parents, Hilvania's parents-in-law, both parents showing signs of dementia. So one more, because these are just so powerful and I can't see them enough.
The most enjoyable part for me was being able to share with other caregivers and knowing that they are also going through some of the things that we're going through with my in-laws. I enjoy sharing with them, and I enjoy listening to them, their story, and how they deal with their situations. And it was a good group. We did get along very well.
Yeah, they will be, we can take the inputs, the way they dealing each other, and then we can add it to us, and the same with them too.
Vice versa.
We can share the different way to work, and then how we find out to get to there too. It's nice. It's nice.
What was the most valuable piece of information you learned from the Savvy Caregiver training?
I would say for me the island stages. I can able to watching my father and see how they're going to be able to work with them in a passion way and in a passion form. They can hold a little bit more before go all through.
So that's the one I agree with. Learning about the island stages. We know where they are. We know where they're going, and know how to handle certain things that we can handle. And with this, it helped us also how to help them maintain active, so not to go down so quick.
What changes have you adopted from the training and used with your loved one?
Working with the different stages, it's very good because I can use some different ways to work with them. I like that.
One of my things, I learned to pick my battles with them. I learned that I cannot force them to see things my way because they see things their way, and I have to understand. I learned to understand that they have that they're not going to see it my way. So I learned to pick my battles. I learned to understand them a little better, and I learned that if they get too upset, that by letting it go and visiting it again slowly and just letting them know by rubbing their back and hugging them that we are trying to do the best for them and care for them.
What changes have you adopted for yourself to improve your quality of life?
For me was be patient and lover and go through with them. It's like I have for myself. I have a question. They said is love, prayer, and adding the train I get victory with love.
Well, what I have adopted, how this has helped me is that I am taking more time now for myself. I am giving letting go some of my things that I want to hold, that I want to keep on doing it, letting it go, and let the other PCA workers take over. And I clearly learned that I would tell them exactly what I want them to buy me, because I like doing my grocery. But in this case, well, there's some things they can buy, and I don't have to. I could relieve myself. I have, after this workshops that I took, I have been going out. We have been going out for lunch, my husband and I. We have been doing things, but I leave everything set. I do a schedule for food, the schedule for their activity during the day and everything, and I ask them, do not change anything, just keep the routine, and it'll make it easier for them and for us when we come back to them. And next week I'm going on a retreat for 3 days for women. Looking forward to it.
Great.
Thank you, Hilvania and Jose.
Just love to see those. They never get old. They were wonderful participants. So that brings us to, how do you find a Savvy Caregiver training? So hopefully there's enough interest from this presentation. I know Vicki said she's going to share it throughout her network. I'd love to host one, and some of you can join me. If that doesn't happen, we have a calendar of events right on our website, which is right there, Healthy Living, the number 4me.org. If you click right on this program schedule tab, it's going to give you a list of our upcoming programs. Like I said, we just don't offer Savvy. We have all different programs, but as you can see, there's 1, 2, 3 Savvy Caregivers starting soon. Then the next couple of weeks already on the calendar. We have about 60 practitioners trained statewide. And this calendar gets updated daily as we receive information from our partners. So keep checking it. If it doesn't work for you, check back within a couple of weeks and there may be a program added. You can also reach directly out to me, Crystal Polizzotti. There's my email, my direct line. I'm happy to chat, anything that's needed. Visit our website. We're also very active on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. So give us a like, a follow, a share. We try to post all kinds of information from Caregiver and beyond on that. And that brings me to the end of my presentation. So I hope everyone found this informative and you took a little something from it, and I'm happy to answer questions right now or personally, whatever works for everyone, but I appreciate you tuning in today.
Crystal, thank you so much for an incredible presentation. It really sounds like a wonderful program, and I do hope that we can get the interest to be able to offer it through the library. If anyone has questions, you can unmute now. You can type it into the chat box. You can send me an email and I can get it. If I can't answer it, I can send it to Crystal. So we have a lot of ways to get answers for you.
Just put our website and my email in the chat.
Sure.
Just in case, because I kind of went quickly. healthyliving4me.org.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you have a question, Diane?
Yeah, I do. I would say that my husband is just starting. He hasn't gotten very far yet. Although I am interested in the program, can I benefit from it anyway?
I think you can. As I said, sometimes folks who are at your point in the caregiving journey, it can be eye-opening, it can be overwhelming. But I think it'll all come full circle by the end. And, when the time comes to use some of these skills, you'll have them in your toolbox. You'll have that manual, you'll have the handouts. And it's just a great resource. Maybe you'll need them, maybe you won't, but I really feel like it's never too early. But just be prepared for, some heavy information, some sad stories, but then you won't be going in head first, as we often say. So,
yeah. I think that I already don't know how to handle things, so I think that I could definitely benefit from it, as long as it's all right for me to sign up.
Absolutely. Well, hearing that statement, if you're already questioning things or struggling with anything, I think you're going to be the perfect fit.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Brian, did you have a question?
Yeah, I did. I have to think about it again. So I had a couple questions. So let me start with the first one is, are these in-person trainings or are they remote, given the current current COVID situation?
Yeah, so right now we're doing strictly remote. We do have some partners statewide that might have facilities to offer them in person, but as far as in the Merrimack Valley and the North Shore, we're strictly remote. We're probably going to stay that way until at least the fall, and then we'll reassess. And then we're hoping to resume in person. And I was sharing with Vicki at the beginning before you folks joined that eventually we'd love to have both options, in person and remote, moving forward.
How much of the program, how much, let me think about this. So this is mostly for personal, like family type caregivers. How much interweaving, if you will, is there with any professional caregiving as well, right? Because it's got to be kind of a two-way street. Somebody mentioned it in one of the testimonials.
Yep.
How much do you get involved with that?
Sure. So we can absolutely, the program is designed for the family caregiver. So we really don't allow professional caregivers to attend the workshops. However, we have a lot of professional partners statewide that can get trained to do what I do. So for example, next week, I'm offering a 2-day training where it's a train the trainer. So folks who may be in the social work field, the healthcare industry, they're a great fit for this. And we use a lay leader model. So anyone from volunteers to people who work in the fields can get trained. So that's the better option for paid. I have had scenarios in the past where family caregivers have brought along either a volunteer family caregiver, or I had one woman, I'll use this specific example because it's pretty clear. This one woman was caring for her husband, and she had a woman that she knew who would come over and clean the house every week. The woman who cleaned the house started to see that there were some needs increasing for the woman's husband. So she stepped in and said, while I'm here, if you want to run out and run your errands, I know he has dementia, I'll keep him in good care. And they came together as a pair, and that worked really well. But there's a huge emotional component to Savvy that I think really only resonates with family or friend caregivers that paid professionals just aren't a good fit for. And you also have to be actively caring for someone. But I want to be clear when we say active, even if you're making 1 to 3 phone calls a week, that's an active caregiver. We're really all caregivers. It's just as long as your person is showing cognitive impairment, that's what makes you a good fit for Savvy. So for the 6-week workshop, we're going to deflect no paid caregivers, but we would offer them the opportunity to get trained as a leader. So I hope that answers your question. It can be tricky. Yeah, I screen every scenario is different, I find, with caregivers. So I do make exceptions as we go, but just bringing in paid caregivers to take it solo, that is always going to be a no-go.
Okay, that which is fine. The reason I'm bringing it up is so father 83, mother 81, in that range. My mother is the one with she's fully in the middle stages, right? Has been for years. My father's just your typical cranky old man, and he's tough too. It's a tough combination, right? But we the sons, there's 3 of us, are not actively involved with them. I'm anticipating that at some point we have to. I'm active maybe once a month, once every 3 weeks. I go back, take care of bills, take care of cleaning, just different little things, right? But I'm kind of foreshadowing that that's going to change at some point. As long as they're both, well, as long as one can compensate for the other, we're good. But so would that be a good fit, or would it really be if there was a change in scenario where we would take more of an active role in their daily care?
With it being one of your parents suffering from cognitive impairment, you're a perfect fit. Not only can you pass information along to your father, number one, and then again, similar to what Diane mentioned, as you become more needed, you're going to have these skills. And I often encourage people, we hear this a lot, especially with men. So it's great to see a couple men on the call today. It's really hard to recruit men. We typically have about 80% female participants. So, encourage your father to come along with you. Maybe that'll work. We do allow family members to be in the same group. I just wouldn't go more than 2 of the same family member in a group, because that can really take over the dynamics. Like a father, brother, and sister that's going to dominate the group. But I've had many, many scenarios where a father, son, father, daughter, mother, son have come to the workshops together. It's kind of easier sell, but I totally get it. It's not for everyone.
Yeah. Okay. And with my parents are not in the district. They're out in Western Mass. Would that still be okay, even though I'm here and they are there? You know, or would I
Absolutely.
have to seek the resources out there?
Nope. So that's the silver lining in virtual and remote delivery. We no longer have boundaries. When I do run them in person, it is focused on the catchment, but you would even be included for in person, because as long as one or the other live in our catchment, you fall in. So you, as a family caregiver in the Merrimack Valley, you're eligible for family caregiver supports through Elder Services. It doesn't matter where your parents live. We have a program specific to one-on-one caregiver support that a lot of times Savvy just isn't enough for some people. And I get that, especially for folks who are early in the caregiving journey. So I refer them we have a wonderful team of family caregiver support specialists, and they do one-on-one calls, meet in person when it's safe. And as long as you're in the catchment or your parents are in the catchment, you're a fit for that. And we have 20, we call ourselves AAAs, area agencies on aging. And we're a statewide collaborative in the Healthy Living Center. That is something that's different from ESMB. So we have these programs statewide, and we're in just about every single AAA in the state. So if you have a friend that lives out in Western Mass, when we can resume in person, don't hesitate. There's programs out there too.
Okay. And my last question is, if I went through the program, then could another sibling go through the same program, so that we can kind of tag team right afterwards, right? You don't like to have that dynamic where they're both in the same course, but could they take it separately later on or through one of the other agencies?
Absolutely. We encourage that. And I just want to be clear, if you and your sister wanted to come together, that's fine. The only thing I might veer away if it was your dad, you and your sister, and it's only a 6-7 person group, you're 50% of the group. So if you and your sister both agree to a group, sign right up. I do want to be clear about that. But yes, no, we encourage you to encourage your family to come. I mean, and if you can recruit them, please teach me your ways, because I still can't recruit my aunts to my own program. So it's
Well, it needs to be what's the word? An equal lift by all of us. So eventually that we're all going to have to share.
You're so right. You're so right.
We haven't found a way to be able to all the sons and the mother and the father to communicate, because they don't talk on the phone. They're not tech savvy. We can't get outside people in like other family members. Don't allow anybody in the house. So it's
tricky.
It's on me because I'm the one that lives closest, right? Everybody else is out of state. And I just want to figure out a way, at least to get this started. And then we can maybe figure out how to, do a weekly call with the family type thing.
Yeah, I think that's a great starting point. And like I said, I'll email you, if you join a workshop, I'll email you that manual. So it's a great, nice, passive way to pass it off to family members and say, it's a super easy read, large print, and have them start scrolling through it. I did do that for my family as well. I just made them all little personal deliveries of the manuals. At least we have something. So I think you're on the right track. Great.
Sharon. Oops.
That's my quota.
If you're sure.
I'm good, thank you.
Sharon had a question. Can caregivers have full-time jobs and manage caregiving?
They can. It's tricky. That I don't have a perfect answer to, but I will say it's very, very common. You are going to put yourself at a higher risk of burnout. That's when it's going to be really important to tap into resources, family, friends who can help. But it's very common to have sandwich generation caregivers. They're working a full-time job, they have little ones at home, and then mom and dad need care as well. That is a growing population of caregivers, and we call them sandwich generation caregivers. And then we have folks like you saw Marianne, right? She didn't think she could do it. And then she got some skills, tried some things differently, tapped into some local resources, and she said, hey, I'm going back to work. So it's possible, and hats off to you if you can manage it all.
Okay. Any more questions? And like I said, if you don't come up with a question now and you think of it later, please email me. I will make sure I get it to Crystal if it's something that I can't answer. Sharon said thank you. then I think that we will probably sign off for the evening. Thank you again, Crystal. This has been very, very enlightening. And
Wonderful.
I look forward to sharing this with other members of our library so that we can hopefully get a group going.
Wonderful. Thank you again
Okay.
for having me. It was great to see everyone today, and reach out anytime. I'm happy to hear from you.
Great. Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you,
good
Crystal.
night.
Yep. Good night,
everyone.
everyone.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay.